Clara Emerson finished her shift with the smell of antiseptic still clinging to her sleeves, and a single text blinking on her screen: "Don't forget your birthday dinner this Saturday. 6 p.m. Home." The tile beneath her shoes felt extra slick that afternoon, a symptom of too many mop passes and too little sunlight in the halls of Golden Pines. She stood in the hallway for a second longer than she should have, staring down at the message. No love, Mom, no cake emoji, no punctuation. Just like every year, just a message that came a little too late and meant a little too little. But it came, and Clara, in her usual quiet way, let it mean something anyway. The day outside was warmer than expected for early September in Willow Glen, but the breeze carried that subtle whisper of the coming fall. Clara pushed open the heavy glass door of the care center and squinted into the light. Friday of Labor Day weekend meant half the town was already in barbecue mode. The sidewalks were dotted with red, white, blue buntings, and someone had tied miniature flags to the lamppost outside Dot's Corner Cafe. She had clocked out 15 minutes ago, but her body still moved like she was on duty. The bag on her shoulder sagged with the weight of her scrubs, the extra pair of socks she'd forgotten to swap out, and the notebook where she wrote down medication reminders for patients who didn't have family to remember for them. Just before leaving, Clara had lingered at room 112. Eloise had been dozing, her thin hair tucked beneath a lavender scarf. The room smelled faintly of talcum powder and old books. Clara adjusted the woman's blanket, humming an old lullaby she didn't remember learning, only that it surfaced when her hand stilled and her heart softened. Eloise stirred. "You carry light, Clara," she murmured, barely audible. "Even when others forget to see it." Clara smiled gently, brushing the woman's hand with the back of her fingers. "Sleep well, Eloise." Becca met her at the nurse's station, tying her ponytail tight. "Still tucking people in after clockout? You're too good for this world." Clara shrugged with a faint grin. "I don't mind." Becca tilted her head. "You got plans tonight?" "Family dinner," Clara replied, then quickly added, "birthday dinner, actually." Becca's brows lifted. "Well, it's about time. They doing something big?" Clara hesitated. "I don't know. I just got the text." She held up her phone. Becca squinted. "That's it?" Clara turned the screen back to herself. "It's more than last year." The parking lot shimmered faintly with late afternoon light as Clara slid behind the wheel of her car, a faithful but faded blue sedan with a coffee cup permanently nestled in the cup holder. The interior still smelled faintly like takeout and lavender sachets. She rested her forehead on the steering wheel for a breath, then straightened. Traffic into the town center was light. Most folks had already settled into wherever they were barbecuing or watching reruns of old football games. As she drove, Clara passed Dot's Corner Cafe and glanced reflexively toward its window. The painted lettering was chipped, the neon open a sign buzzing faintly behind streaked glass. She remembered her 27th birthday, walking in there alone to buy herself cupcakes and the awkward smile the clerk gave her when she asked for just one. The memory caught in her throat for half a block. 2 turns later, a roadside flower stand sat unmanned under a crooked umbrella. Clara pulled over. Rows of mason jars held late summer wildflowers, sunflowers, a few sprigs of rosemary. A woman's honesty box sat beside a sign: "Take what you need, leave what you can." Clara picked out a small potted lavender plant and slipped a $5 bill into the rusted tin. The plant was wrapped in brown paper, secured with a string bow. She held it in her lap for a moment before setting it on the passenger seat. "Just in case no one brings flowers," she murmured. The drive to her parents' house didn't take long. It rarely did. The roads were too familiar, the curves too memorized. The houses grew more polished the closer she got, fewer cracked driveways, more symmetry in the hedges. Her parents' home stood at the corner of Evergreen Lane, just like always, 2 stories of painted timber and cautious hospitality. She turned onto the street and slowed. There were balloons on the mailbox. Gold and lavender ones, swaying in the breeze. A row of cars lined the curb, Cousin Sam's Honda, Aunt Lydia's minivan, even Maisie's bright white convertible that always looked like it had rolled out of a commercial. Clara's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. She parked in the driveway, staring for a few seconds at the house. The porch light was already on, even though the sun hadn't dipped fully. A breeze rustled the hydrangeas in the front yard. Music drifted faintly from inside, something upbeat, distant, unbothered. Her heart fluttered in a rhythm that was both hope and defense. She reached over, took the lavender plant from the passenger seat, and checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her scrubs were neat enough, though she wished she'd had time to change. A bit of color returned to her cheeks as she smoothed her hair and wiped away a smudge of eyeliner. Then she opened the door. The smell of barbecue and vanilla candles reached her before her foot hit the porch step. Someone laughed inside. Another clink of glassware. She paused at the door, inhaling once, twice. Clara took a breath, smoothed her scrubs, and stepped inside, where cheers erupt, but not for her. "Happy birthday, Maisie," someone shouted, and Clara froze, still holding the lavender pot like a rapt apology. The cheer rang louder than it needed to, echoing off the vaulted ceiling and bouncing against Clara's ribs. For a second, she thought she'd misheard. But the wave of clapping and the swell of laughter that followed made it clear she hadn't. A dozen faces turned toward the center of the living room, not toward the doorway where Clara now stood, but toward the couch where Maisie, radiant in a pale yellow dress, beamed and playfully covered her mouth in mock surprise. The banner stretched above her head read "Happy Birthday, Maisie," in glittery, pre-cut letters, pinned with precision. Clara blinked. The lavender pot in her hands grew heavier, her fingers tightening around its base. She remembered her own 16th birthday. The banner hung at an awkward angle with masking tape, the marker letters bleeding through notebook paper. Her name had been misspelled. Her cake had come from the grocery store's discount fridge. She had told herself none of that mattered. Tonight's banner didn't bend. Tonight's cake, already half-sliced on the table, was custom frosted, adorned with pastel sugar flowers. Maisie's name glistened in looping script across the top. Aunt Lydia swept past Clara with a glass of white wine in one hand and a cheese platter in the other. "Oh, you're here. Clara, right?" she said in passing, not waiting for confirmation. Clara offered a soft smile that no one caught and stepped further inside, moving around clumps of chatting relatives. The house smelled like cinnamon sugar and scented candles. Every surface gleamed. The floors had been mopped, the baseboards dusted. Someone had gone through great effort to make everything picture perfect. Maisie stood surrounded by cousins and family friends, her curls pinned back, lipstick precise. "It's nothing, really," she was saying. "I didn't even want a party this year." Clara stood just behind the gathering, still clutching the lavender. Her mother, Diana, appeared at Maisie's side, slipping an arm around her waist. "Don't be modest," Diana said with a laugh. "You've earned this. New job, that article in the magazine, the coaching certificate. We're just so proud." The room hummed with approval. Glasses clinked. Clara's father, Richard, raised a tumbler. "To Maisie," he said. "The brightest star of the Emerson family." Someone handed Maisie another wrapped gift. She laughed again, eyes bright. Clara took a half step back, her shoulder brushing a coat rack. No one had asked if she wanted a drink. No one had taken the lavender plant from her hands. She looked down at it, still wrapped in brown paper, string bow slightly frayed. There were no gifts for her on the table. No card with her name. Just Maisie's growing stack, each one carefully unwrapped to gasps and applause. A leather purse, a silver bracelet, a silk scarf from Aunt Linda, who exclaimed, "It's just so Maisie." Clara backed toward the edge of the room. She found a folding chair, clearly from the garage, a mismatched one with a dented leg, and pulled it near the doorway. She sat quietly, setting the lavender on her lap. No one moved to speak with her. No one looked twice. Her mother passed by once to refill a bowl of almonds. "Can you scoot in, sweetie?" she asked. Clara shifted her chair against the wall. That was it. The evening stretched on in waves of laughter and shifting conversations. Spotify played a playlist of acoustic hits. The lights dimmed slightly for the slideshow, photos of Maisie through the years. Her baby picture, her dance recital, high school cheer, college graduation. There were no images of Clara, not even in the background. It was as if she'd been cropped out of history. Clara kept her eyes on the lavender. She thought of the honesty box where she'd bought it. Take what you need. Leave what you can. She didn't know what she needed anymore, but she knew what she had left, almost nothing. A waiter appeared near the kitchen archway, dressed in black slacks and a crisp button-down. He wasn't part of the family. Clara hadn't noticed him earlier. He scanned the room, then stepped toward her. "Miss Emerson," he said softly. She blinked. "Yes." "This is for you," he said, handing her a sealed envelope. "Mr. Harlan asked me to give you this." Clara stared at it. Her name was written in sharp, careful script across the front. Just Clara, nothing more. Her breath caught. The waiter gave a polite nod and disappeared into the swirl of conversation. She held the envelope with both hands, fingertips trembling. The lavender plant sat forgotten on the floor beside her chair. Her grandfather's handwriting. The party continued on around her, unbroken. Someone started a toast. Maisie laughed at something. Diana clapped. The moment stood apart, quiet, sealed. No one noticed her, and for once, Clara was glad. She stood up slowly, placing the lavender gently on the folding chair. Her footsteps were soft on the hardwood floor as she crossed the living room and slipped out the side door. The porch was cool, lit by a single bulb. A moth danced near the screen. Clara exhaled, letting the silence settle. She leaned against the railing, envelope pressed to her chest. She excuses herself, steps onto the back porch, and clutches the envelope under the porch light. The handwriting was slanted, slow, and unmistakably Grandpa Harlan's. Clara hadn't seen it since the last Christmas card, 8 years ago. She ran her thumb across the edge of the envelope, hesitant to tear into something that felt heavier than its weight. The bench beneath her was cold, smoothed by weather and time, just off the path near Willow Glen's old gazebo. Crickets sang in the bushes and the distant splash of the park's fountain echoed like a heartbeat. Overhead, dusk thickened the sky, and the first flickers of fireflies blinked into view. Clara sat still, letting the envelope rest in her lap, as if it needed permission to be opened. Eloise's voice drifted through her mind, quiet, haunting, strange in how it suddenly felt like prophecy. Some names stay written in the dark until someone dares to read them. She didn't know what she expected. A birthday card, maybe. A simple note. A check. But the paper inside was thick, folded with care, and inked in Harlan's precise, slightly leaning cursive. Her name, just a Clara, had been written on the front like it was sacred. She unfolded the letter slowly. My Clara. If this has reached you, then it means I've broken a promise I once swore to keep. Her hands trembled. She kept reading. There's something I've carried for too long. I let others convince me silence was kindness. I was wrong. Your mother's name was Camille Harper. She was my daughter's best friend, and she was the kind of woman who could turn a room golden just by stepping into it. She wanted you more than anything. And she loved you so fiercely it scared people. Clara's breath caught. She died not long after you were born. I won't write the details here. Not yet. But in the wreckage of that grief, Diana stepped in. She said it would be best if she raised you, best for you, best for the family, best for everyone. But she didn't take you out of love. She took you because she couldn't stand to watch someone else's legacy shine brighter than hers. The words blurred. Clara wiped her eyes roughly with the back of her hand. I wanted to stay close. I did what I could. But I was told to stop confusing you. Told to let you bond properly. And I did. I stayed quiet, even when it broke something inside me. I want you to know, I never stopped seeing you. Camille used to call you her firefly. Said you lit up even the darkest parts of her life. She wrote songs for you. Sang to you while you were still inside her. I kept those songs. I kept everything she gave me. I kept your light safe the only way I could. The page shook as Clara turned it over, her knuckles white. If you want to know more, come see me. The porch lights on. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. The sounds of the park had faded. Somewhere across the lawn, children were still playing, their laughter distant, but Clara was inside a different kind of stillness. Camille. The name hit like a bell rung far away, echoing through rooms inside her that she hadn't dared open. It made things make sense, and unmake others all at once. She thought of the way Diana looked through her instead of at her. The way Richard smiled without warmth. The birthday banner that wasn't hers. All those years of wondering if she was just asking for too much. It wasn't too much. It was the bare minimum. And she had always known, somewhere deep beneath her skin, that she didn't quite belong. That there was a piece missing. Now it had a name. She folded the letter with both reverence and rising strength. For the first time, she felt like she belonged to someone. She stood slowly, tucking the letter against her chest. Fireflies blinked near her ankles, drifting like tiny lanterns in the twilight. She walked away from the park, not back home, but towards Sycamore Street, toward her grandfather. The porch light was on, just like he said. Warm, steady, like someone had been waiting all this time. Clara stood at the gate for a long moment, the letter still folded in her pocket like a fragile truth. The street was quiet, lit only by the soft yellow glow spilling from the porch and the faint hum of crickets tucked somewhere in the bushes. The house hadn't changed, same pale blue siding, same creaky steps, same wind chimes singing an off-key melody when the breeze stirred. She climbed the porch slowly, her palms clammy despite the cooling air. The wooden floorboards groaned under her feet, but the sound felt familiar, almost forgiving. Her hand hovered over the doorbell when the door opened on its own. Harlan stood there, tall but slightly hunched, his white shirt soft with age and sleeves rolled to the elbows. His eyes met hers, not surprised, not questioning, just present. She couldn't read the expression entirely. It wasn't pity, and it wasn't joy. It was something quieter. Something like relief. He didn't speak. He just opened his arms. Clara stepped into them, breath catching. The hug was awkward at first, but then something loosened inside her. She let her head rest against his shoulder, allowed herself one long, uneven inhale. Cedar and mint. She remembered that scent from years ago, when she was small enough to crawl into his lap during family barbecues. When they pulled apart, he gestured gently for her to come in. No questions, no fanfare. Just space. The house was as she remembered it, maybe a little dimmer, but every object still in place. The ceramic lamp with the leaning shade. The bookshelf with dog-eared novels and stacked photo albums. The crocheted blanket draped over the armchair, faded with love. There were no screens glowing, no harsh overhead lights. Just the soft pull of a table lamp and the smell of something herbal brewing in the kitchen. Tea? Harlan asked. She nodded. Her throat was too tight for words. He moved quietly through the kitchen, and she wandered into the living room. A box sat on the coffee table, wooden, worn smooth at the corners. Harlan returned with two mismatched mugs and set one down beside it. I kept what I could, he said. It's not everything. But it's hers. Yours, really. Clara eased down onto the couch. Her hand hovered over the box for a moment before she lifted the lid. Inside were layers. A journal on top, leather-bound and faded. Beneath it, a folded hospital blanket, soft blue with white stripes. A photograph, gently yellowed, of a young woman with deep brown eyes and thick waves of dark hair, cradling a newborn. Camille. Clara's breath caught in her chest. She lifted the photo with trembling fingers. That's the day she brought you home, Harlan said softly. She made the nurse take 5 pictures until she got one where you were both smiling. Clara traced the curve of Camille's smile with her fingertip, then her own baby cheek. There was something familiar in the shape of her mother's jaw, in the gentleness of her hands. She opened the journal next, careful not to crease the spine. Camille's handwriting danced across the page in loops and dips. September 4th. The baby kicked again tonight. Right after I finished singing. It's like she's answering me. I call her Firefly because she lights up the dark places. I don't know if I'm ready. But I want to be. I want her to feel safe. Wanted. I hope she knows how wanted she is. The words blurred as Clara blinked through tears. Harlan sat quietly beside her, letting the silence swell around them like a blanket. From a nearby shelf, he pulled down a cassette tape labeled in the same handwriting, Firefly Waltz. He placed it in an old player, clicked it shut, and pressed play. A few static pops crackled before the melody began, soft, almost shy at first. A piano piece, gentle and wandering, like it was being discovered note by note. It rose, swelled, then quieted again. The kind of lullaby that wrapped around you instead of leading you somewhere. Clara closed her eyes. She wrote it when she was pregnant with you, Harlan said. Said she dreamed the notes one night. Woke up crying and played it barefoot in her pajamas. Clara held the journal open, fingers brushing over the lines as the melody filled the room. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. The house was speaking for her. They sipped tea and mint with a touch of honey, just how Harlan remembered Camille liking it. The hour drifted on slowly, and the light in the room shifted from lamplight to the dim blue of early night. Then Harlan stood, walked to the cabinet, and returned with a smaller envelope. He held it out with both hands. This, he said, she wrote for you. She told me to keep it sealed until your 30th birthday. Clara took it with both hands, heart tight. Her name was written across the front in Camille's hand. Neat, elegant, deliberate. She didn't open it. Not yet. Clara clutched the letter, whispering, tomorrow. Her voice steadier now. I'll read it on the day she meant it for. Dear Clara, if you're reading this, I hope you've found the sky again. The ink was blue, slightly faded but still crisp, and the scent of lavender clung softly to the page, like it had lived in a drawer lined with dried petals. Clara's fingers hovered for a beat before continuing, her breath caught somewhere between her chest and throat. The morning sun filtered through the lace curtains in Harlan's kitchen, casting delicate patterns on the table where the letter rested. A pot of oatmeal bubbled gently on the stove, long forgotten, its soft plop the only sound beyond the hush of the cassette player in the next room. Firefly Waltz, played on repeat, its notes drifting like whispers through the hallway. Clara sat by the window, wrapped in a knitted shawl that smelled faintly of cedar and old stories. Her bare feet curled on the chair rung beneath her. She read slowly, letting each word settle. I wanted to be the one to tell you all these things face to face. I wanted to hold your hand and tell you about the day you were born. About the way you blinked up at me with such serious eyes, like you already knew the world was going to be complicated. They told me I had time. But time doesn't always listen. The letters curved with the kind of care only someone who meant every word could write. Camille's voice wasn't dramatic. It was steady. Kind. Brave. Clara didn't try to hold back the tears. They came easily now, not from pain, but from the unfamiliar shape of being known. You were never a mistake. You were my beginning. The paper trembled in her hands. They told me Diana could give you more stability. A family. But I feared what she would do with your light. How she might try to mold you into something quiet, something convenient. And I hate that I was right. If you've made it to this letter, it means you found your way through all the noise and the silence. That you've grown into the kind of woman who asks her own questions. That makes me proud, Firefly. So proud I could burst. Clara smiled through the blur, the nickname landing softer now, a balm instead of a sting. She turned the page, careful not to crease the edge where the corner had been folded and unfolded countless times. I sang to you every night before you were born. Sometimes in English, sometimes in nonsense syllables I made up just for us. Music was how I held you before I could hold you. I hope you still hum to yourself when no one's listening. Promise me one thing, never let anyone make you smaller to fit their comfort. You were born luminous. You're allowed to take up space. The letter ended simply. I loved you first. I will love you always. Mom. Clara folded the letter slowly, cradling it against her heart. She didn't move for a long time. The front door creaked a little before a soft knock echoed through the hall. Harlan's voice followed. "Eloise is here." Clara stood and tucked the letter into its envelope, then opened the door to find the elderly woman bundled in a patterned shawl, cheeks rosy from the morning air. "I brought lemon scones," Eloise said with a gentle smile, holding up a brown paper bag. They settled at the table, Harlan pouring tea while the record player clicked off in the other room. Clara handed Eloise a photo from the wooden box, one of Camille at a piano, mid-laugh. Eloise took it in her weathered hands and blinked. "Good heavens," she whispered. "That's Camille Harper." Clara straightened, surprised. "She taught me piano when I was 10, Eloise said, eyes distant now, somewhere else. She had the kindest hands. Like she was never in a rush, even when the world was." Clara didn't say anything at first. She just let it sink in, that Camille's kindness had extended beyond her, had shaped other lives, however briefly. "It explains the way you play," Eloise added, patting Clara's hand. "You carry her gentleness." After Eloise left, Clara returned to the table, pulled out a folder Harlan had already laid there, and began filling out the paperwork. She wrote slowly, carefully. First name, Clara. Last name, Harper. She left the final line blank until the end, then signed with her full new name, pausing only to check the curves of each letter. That afternoon, she walked into the county courthouse, envelope in hand. The clerk took it without comment, skimmed the form, and looked up. "Beautiful name," the clerk said, nodding. Clara smiled. It was the first time in her life she believed it. At the post office, Clara signs a birthday card for a resident at the care center. She writes, "From Clara Harper," and doesn't hesitate. The pen glided across the floral stationery with a confidence that surprised her. She didn't pause. Didn't second guess. The name felt settled now, not just legally, but bone deep. Clara Harper. It was hers, completely. The clerk behind the counter glanced up as she dropped the envelope into the outgoing bin. "Nice handwriting," he remarked absently. Clara smiled, said thank you, and stepped back into the sunlit street. Willow Glen in late September was golden and quiet. Leaves had begun to crisp at the edges, sidewalks dusted with the early whispers of fall. She pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders and walked the 2 blocks to the courthouse. Inside, the final documents waited for her. The woman at the desk stamped them briskly, smiled kindly, and slid them across with a nod. "That's it," she said. "You're all set." Clara tucked the folder into her tote, fingers brushing the photo tucked inside, a copy of Camille cradling her in the hospital, eyes shining, that soft half-laugh caught mid-breath. She didn't need the paperwork to know who she was now, but it still felt good to have the world catch up. At Golden Pines, the halls were quieter than usual. Clara had asked to move her shift to late morning so she could be there for the music hour. She'd brought the small cassette player from Harlan's house, along with a converted recording of Firefly Waltz on her phone, just in case the tape gave out. She wheeled the piano into the corner of the common room, nodding to Becca, who raised an eyebrow and smirked. "This new?" she asked, tipping her head at the melody Clara began to play. Clara shook her head gently. "It's old. But it's mine now." The notes floated through the air like they had been waiting. A few residents closed their eyes. One hummed softly along. Eloise sat near the window, knitting something with lavender-colored yarn, her needles clicking in rhythm. When the last note faded, the room was quiet for a beat longer than usual. "Your mother's light didn't vanish," Eloise said quietly. "It just waited in you." Clara looked up, her throat thick, and gave a small nod. It was the kind of sentence that didn't need reply. Later that afternoon, she stopped by Dot's Corner to meet Eloise for tea. They sat by the window with cinnamon scones and steaming mugs. Eloise chatted about the weather, about her cat's latest adventures, about the neighbor who kept forgetting trash day. Clara listened, laughed. She didn't feel like she was performing. Just existing. Fully. When she returned home to her small apartment, a place she had once seen as temporary, she paused at the entry. The photo of Camille sat by the window, flanked by a tiny vase of fresh lavender and the folded shawl Harlan had sent home with her. The light through the curtains made everything glow. On the counter sat a small cardboard box wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. Inside, her old name badge from the care center and a folded note that simply read, "I've kept what matters. No need to return this." That evening, she walked the familiar block to her parents' house. The porch light was on, as always. No one was home, Maisie's convertible gone, the driveway empty. Clara set the box gently on the front step, tucked the note underneath the twine, and turned away. She walked home slowly, not because she was tired, but because she wanted to remember the sound of her own footsteps. The wind brushed against her coat. Her shadow stretched ahead of her, long, but not heavy. For the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like something she was dragging. That evening, she sits by the window, fireflies blinking outside, tea warm in her hands. One firefly lands on the sill. She smiles. The quietest changes often echo the loudest. In a world that once made Clara feel invisible, it was the unseen kindness of a mother she never knew that helped her find her way back to herself. When we choose to see beyond the surface, to honor gentleness, to believe in someone's worth before the world confirms it, we light a path not just for them, but for ourselves. Like a firefly in the dark, a single act of quiet love can become a beacon. And if this story found you at just the right time, perhaps there's someone waiting to be seen in your light, too.